The morning sun glittered over the runway as Flight 327 prepared for takeoff. The hum of engines filled the air and passengers settled into their seats, unaware that this flight would soon make history. Among them sat Emily Carter, a 9-year-old girl with bright hazel eyes and a heart full of curiosity. Her feet dangled above the floor as she hugged her worn-out teddy bear, Captain Buttons. Her mother, Sarah Carter, smiled gently beside her. It was their first trip together since Emily's father passed away, and this flight was meant to be a new beginning. Emily pressed her face to the window, mesmerized by the glistening wings. "Mom," she whispered, "do you think pilots ever get scared?" Sarah smiled, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Even the bravest people get scared sometimes, honey. What matters is what they do next." The words lingered in the air as the plane took off, slicing through clouds bathed in gold. Everything felt peaceful. For now. In the cockpit, Captain Harris and First Officer Daniels monitored the systems. "Clear skies and steady winds," Daniels said. "Should be an easy flight." But as they crossed into the Atlantic, the instruments flickered. Once, then twice. And the communication system cut out completely. Harris frowned. "That's not good." "Reset the comms," Daniels tried, but the screen went black. No radar, no radio, no way to contact ground control. In the cabin, the air grew tense. The seatbelt sign flashed on. Flight attendants hurried through the aisles, hiding their panic behind polite smiles. Emily noticed everything, the whispers, the nervous faces, the slight tremor under her feet. "Mom, something's wrong," she murmured. Before Sarah could respond, the plane jolted sharply. Oxygen masks dropped from above, swinging wildly. The sound of alarms filled the cabin. Passengers screamed. Children cried. The intercom crackled. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm. We are experiencing a technical issue." Emily's heart pounded. She looked toward the cockpit. The door was open for a split second, revealing chaos inside. Sparks flashed near the control panel. The pilots were struggling. A flight attendant tried to close the door, but a loose trolley rolled forward, blocking it. Emily could see clearly now. The blinking red light. The disconnected cable. The desperate look in the pilot's eyes. She froze, remembering the countless nights she spent playing on her flight simulator app. She knew what those blinking codes meant. Communication failure. Her mother gripped her hand. "Stay here, Emily." But the plane suddenly tilted to one side. A tray flew across the aisle and people screamed louder. Emily broke free, crawling toward the cockpit through the chaos. "Sweetheart, stop," a flight attendant shouted, but the girl kept going. Small enough to slip past, determined enough not to stop. She reached the cockpit. Captain Harris turned in shock. "What are you doing here?" "It's not safe." Emily pointed at the radio module. "Sir, that light means your connection wire is loose. You can fix it if you—" He blinked in disbelief. "You know what this is?" Before he could question her, another jolt hit. The plane nosedived slightly, alarms blaring. Emily steadied herself and reached toward the panel. "Let me try." Captain Harris hesitated, but something in her eyes, fearless, focused, told him to trust her. She twisted the wire just like she remembered from her simulator game. Sparks flashed, then silence. Then suddenly a voice crackled through the speakers. "Flight 327, do you copy?" Captain Harris froze. Daniels turned to Emily, eyes wide. "The radio's back." Emily smiled weakly, her heart racing. "Yes," Harris shouted into the mic. "This is Flight 327, we're back online." Everyone in the cockpit looked at her in stunned silence. A 9-year-old had just restored communication 30,000 feet above the ocean. But as Emily caught her breath, a warning light flickered on again, something even worse, and this time, it wasn't just a technical failure, to be continued. The cockpit was filled with the sharp smell of burning wires and the steady hum of panic. Red lights flashed across the control panel like angry eyes. Captain Harris shouted, "Engine 2's losing power. Daniels, reroute the hydraulics." Emily clung to the co-pilot's seat, her tiny fingers trembling. She could hear her mother crying somewhere behind the locked door. The plane shook violently, the metal creaking as if the sky itself were tearing apart. The pilot's voice quivered. "We've got radio back, but navigation's still down." "We're blind up here." Emily bit her lip. She glanced at the flickering radar screen, empty except for a faint green outline of what looked like land miles away. "That's the emergency strip, isn't it?" she asked softly. Harris stared at her in disbelief. Kid, how do you even know that? I play Skypilot Simulator 10 every day, she replied quickly. If we're at 30,000 feet and losing altitude this fast, you can still glide. If you angle the wings like this. She pointed to the lever on his side. The captain looked at Daniels, who shrugged helplessly. She's not wrong, sir. We're out of options. For a moment, silence filled the cockpit. The kind of silence that comes before either a miracle or a disaster. Then Harris nodded. All right, Emily, you tell me what to do. Emily climbed onto the jump seat, her teddy bear still clutched in one arm. Tilt 10 degrees left. Pull back slowly. Don't fight the wind and let it carry us. The engines roared again. The plane leveled slightly. For the first time in 10 minutes, it stopped shaking. Daniel's eyes widened. Stabilizing. She did it. Outside, clouds drifted away, revealing an endless stretch of ocean. The sun reflected off the waves, turning everything gold. A haunting beauty that no one could appreciate in that moment of fear. Meanwhile, in the cabin, passengers prayed and held hands. Sarah Carter pressed her face against the seat in front of her, whispering, Please, God, keep her safe. She had no idea her little girl was the reason they were still alive. Then, a sharp explosion. The plane lurched again. Smoke filled the cockpit. Alarms screamed. Engine 2 just died completely. Daniels yelled. Harris cursed under his breath. We can't stay up much longer. We're losing altitude fast! Emily coughed through the smoke, eyes watering. Can't we land on water? Harris shook his head. It's too rough. We'd break apart on impact. The radio crackled again. Flight 327. We read you. Diverting to Military Base Charlie 12. Coordinates transmitting now. But the screen went blank before the coordinates could load. Static filled the speakers. Emily looked down, tears in her eyes. We can't see the map anymore. Captain Harris clenched his jaw. Without the coordinates, we're flying blind. Emily stared at the compass. It was spinning wildly, but every few seconds it stopped, pointing east. She remembered something from her game. Military Base Charlie 12 was always east of the storm zone. She turned to Harris. Go east, trust me. He hesitated, then nodded. Turning east as the plane banked, lightning flashed ahead. A massive storm system swirled in their path. Emily, that's a thunder front, Daniel shouted. We can't go through that! But Emily's voice stayed calm. If we turn back, we'll run out of fuel. The storm's our only shot. The captain hesitated, then pushed the throttle forward. The plane plunged into the storm, swallowed by black clouds. Inside the cabin, screams erupted. Luggage tumbled from overhead bins. Lightning streaked across the windows. Emily gripped the seat, whispering, Please, please work. Then a blinding flash. A direct hit. The lights went out. Everything turned black. For a few terrifying seconds, the only sound was wind howling through the aircraft's frame. Then out of the darkness, Emily heard the faintest voice from the radio. Flight 327. Do you copy? You're approaching runway visual range. We see you. Her eyes widened. They see us. She gasped. But before Captain Harris could respond, the nose of the plane dipped sharply, faster than ever before. The altimeter spun down like a clock counting toward disaster. Passengers screamed. Sarah's voice echoed from the cabin. Emily! The child looked up at the captain, tears streaming down her smoke-streaked face. Please don't let us fall. The captain whispered, Hold on, kid. And then, silence again. The screen went dead. The plane was dropping fast, to be continued. The world outside the cockpit vanished into a storm of darkness. Lightning tore through the clouds, illuminating faces frozen in fear. The sound of rushing wind drowned out every prayer, every scream. Flight 327 was falling. Pull up. Captain Harris shouted, gripping the control column with both hands. The instruments were dead, every gauge blank, every alarm gone silent. It felt like the plane itself had stopped breathing. Emily held on to the co-pilot's armrest, her teddy bear pressed tight against her chest. We can still make it, she cried over the roar of the storm. You said trust the wind, so let it guide us. The captain looked at her. That same fearless look he'd seen before. He pushed the control forward slightly, then eased it back. The plane responded, just enough to slow the descent. Daniel stared at the altimeter. We're leveling, slowly. The nose of the aircraft rose. Sparks flickered outside as lightning brushed against the fuselage, but the wings held firm. Meanwhile, in the cabin, chaos turned into desperate hope. Passengers clung to one another, whispering prayers. Sarah Carter screamed her daughter's name again, tears streaming down her face. "Emily, please answer me." The cabin lights flickered, once, twice, then stayed on. A voice crackled faintly from the cockpit speakers. "This is Flight 327. We are attempting emergency descent. We have a child assisting the crew." On the ground, air traffic controllers exchanged horrified looks. The signal had reached them, distorted, barely audible, but clear enough. Within minutes, news outlets intercepted the emergency broadcast. Breaking news. Passenger plane in distress over Atlantic. 9-year-old reportedly assisting pilots. Across the world, millions tuned in. In the cockpit, Emily squinted through the windshield. The storm began to break apart, revealing a stretch of coastline below. Lights flickered in the distance like tiny stars on Earth. Daniels gasped. "That's the base." "Charlie 12. Harris shouted. "Gear down." "Flaps 20. But the hydraulics were slow. The landing gear jammed halfway. "Manual override," he yelled. Emily spotted a lever under the console. She had seen it once in her simulator. Without hesitation, she pulled it down with both hands. The metal screeched. And then, click. The gear locked into place. Daniel's eyes widened. "Landing gear deployed." The captain exhaled. "You did it again, Emily." The plane descended toward the narrow military runway. Searchlights swung upward, cutting through the fog. The ground crew waved signal flares like angels in the mist. "Hold steady," Harris muttered. Almost there. The wheels hit the tarmac, hard. The plane bounced once, then twice, before screeching to a halt in a cloud of smoke and sparks. Silence. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then, cheers erupted through the cabin. People cried, screamed, hugged strangers. Sarah unbuckled and ran to the cockpit. When the door opened, she froze. Her daughter, sitting in the co-pilot's chair, soot on her cheeks, teddy bear in her lap. Sarah dropped to her knees, pulling Emily into her arms. "You're safe." "My baby, you're safe." Captain Harris's voice cracked. "Ma'am, your daughter just helped save 200 lives." Outside, rescue trucks surrounded the plane. Reporters were already gathering at the gate. Cameras flashed. Soldiers saluted. Within hours, Emily Carter's name was everywhere. The 9-year-old hero of Flight 327. Child pilot saves, hundreds in miracle landing. Courage at 30,000 feet. But Emily barely noticed. In the hospital room later that night, she sat quietly beside her mother, watching the news replay the moment again and again. "I just wanted to help," she whispered, almost to herself. Sarah kissed her forehead. "And you did, sweetheart. You helped the world remember what courage looks like." That night, Emily fell asleep holding captain buttons, unaware that her story had reached the highest office in the country. And somewhere in Washington, D.C., a red phone rang on the president's desk. An aide's voice said softly, "Sir, the child who saved Flight 327, she's awake." The president paused, staring at the headline glowing on his screen. "Get me her number," he said. "I want to speak to her myself." Morning sunlight spilled through the hospital window, turning the sterile white room into something warm and gentle. Emily sat upright in bed, dressed in a pale blue gown. Beside her, Captain Buttons rested against her pillow, a little scorched but still smiling. Her mother, Sarah, poured her a glass of orange juice and tried to smile through exhaustion. "How are you feeling, my brave pilot?" Emily shrugged shyly. "Just tired. Did the others? Are they okay?" Sarah nodded, her voice breaking. "Every single person on that plane made it home because of you." Emily's eyes widened. "All 200? All 200, her mother repeated, tears welling up. Just then, Captain Harris and First Officer Daniels entered the room, dressed in their uniforms but with bandages on their hands. Harris smiled proudly. "You're the youngest co-pilot in aviation history, kiddo." Emily giggled. "I'm not even allowed to drive a car yet." Laughter filled the room, but then a knock at the door silenced everyone. A Secret Service agent in a dark suit stepped in, followed by a woman holding a sleek black phone. "Mrs. Carter?" the agent said respectfully. The president would like to speak with your daughter. Sarah froze. The president? Emily's small hands trembled as the woman gently placed the phone in her palm. On the other end, a calm voice said, "Good morning, Emily. This is the President of the United States." Her breath caught. "Mr. President?" "Yes," the voice said warmly. "I watched what you did up there. You showed courage, intelligence, and compassion, things even adults struggle to find in a moment of crisis. You saved 200 people. You saved families." Tears streamed down Emily's cheeks. "I just wanted to help the pilots. I didn't think it would matter that much." The president chuckled softly. "It mattered to every person who made it home that day. Emily Carter, the nation is proud of you." Everyone in the room was silent. Even the agent smiled. Sarah pressed a hand to her mouth, overwhelmed. The president continued, "I'd like to personally invite you and your mother to the White House. There's someone here who wants to meet the bravest little pilot in America." Emily's eyes widened. "Really?" "Really," the president said. "And one day when you're old enough, I hope you'll come back, not as a guest, but as a real pilot." Her voice wavered. "I will, sir. I promise." When the call ended, Sarah hugged her daughter tight. "You did it, Emmy. You changed the world." Scene transition, 3 weeks later, Washington, D.C. The grand doors of the White House opened as cameras flashed. Emily stepped forward, dressed in a small navy blue pilot jacket gifted by Captain Harris. On the chest was an embroidered patch. "Flight 327, never give up." The president knelt to her level and shook her hand. "Welcome home, Captain Carter." She smiled shyly. "Thank you, sir." The ceremony was broadcast worldwide. News anchors called her the girl who saved the skies. Millions of people sent letters and drawings. A toy company even released a special edition of Captain Buttons, the little bear who had flown through a storm. Final scene, 10 years later. A young woman stood beside a gleaming silver aircraft, the morning sun reflecting off its wings. The name painted across its nose, Courage 327. It was Emily, now 19 years old, dressed in a crisp pilot's uniform. She placed her old teddy bear on the dashboard before takeoff, whispering, "Ready to fly again, Captain Buttons?" The engines roared to life. As the plane lifted from the runway, the world below faded into clouds. Her mother's words echoed in her mind. "Even the bravest people get scared sometimes. What matters is what they do next." Emily smiled, looking toward the horizon. "For everyone who believed in me, this one's for you." And with that, the girl who once saved a flight soared into the sky. Not as a passenger this time, but as a pilot who proved that courage knows no age. The end.